It's 1:30 a.m. and I just finished the brothers Karamazov after reading the last 200 pages yesterday and today. And what an incredible journey it is to go through this book. I am, um, kind of sad right now. I think, once you finish a really great book, it's sad because you know that you will never get to experience reading that particular book again for the first time. And you also realize that the next book you're going to pick up is probably going to pale in comparison. And that's very much how I feel about finishing the Brothers Karamazov. I'll keep this video less than 10 minutes and I'll keep it spoiler free until the end. I'll write a I'll write a review for this book tomorrow, I think. But I mean, what can you say about the brothers Karamazov? Um, I think it's Terry Eagleton, or maybe it was another literary theorist that said that you really need to try to condense a book down to just a few paragraphs or just even a single sentence in order to test whether you truly understand it. But what is the Brothers Karamazov about? It's about a great number of things. It's about three brothers, three very different brothers that, in and of themselves, embody very different attitudes and mindsets and values. And together they represent a wholeness, a biblical trinity, and also a human completion. Um, it's about the murder of a father. It's about guilt. It's about lack of maternal love. It's about lack of a fatherly role model. It's about um, what it's about the Christian notion of every human being guilty towards one another. It's about who is responsible for a crime. Is it the person who does it? Is it the person who instigates it? Is it also the person that wished for it to happen, even though he took no action towards it? Are you equally guilty if you refrain from taking action that could prevent the crime from happening? It's a murder mystery, even though perhaps it's not much of a mystery, but there is speculation as to who has done it, and Dostoevsky creates that sort of tension by leaving a blank space when the crime actually happens. We do not get told how it happens. He leaves it open for us to ponder. The fact that a murder does happen is not a great spoiler. The topic of parasite is mentioned very early on in one of the first chapters. It is even significantly hinted that Dmitri will be the murderer when Susima bows down to him in anticipation of his great sin. The first few hundred pages is character study and philosophizing. And just when you think that that's what this whole book is going to be about, then Dostoevsky puts on an excellent plot and narrative progression, and he shows that he can not only write great characters and moralize and philosophize and write about theology and the role of the church and the role of the human spirituality and the future of Russia and the human destiny. He can also write a thrilling novel. There is a middle part of this book that is feverishly, intensely, dramatically plot driven. And then there are these set pieces of great monologues and dialogues that makes him sound like a playwright, as Nabokov called him, the nation's playwright. it's a great book. It's absolutely, mind-numbingly brilliant. Um, it has really increased my appreciation of it to simultaneously with reading it also reading the Bible, because the Bible was, of course, much more in the zeitgeist in Russia at the time, and it was forever present in Dostoevsky's mind. And he was forever concerned and preoccupied with the notion of the Christian, the decay of the Christian values, the rise of nihilism, the future of Russia, and what it might all mean for the human race and for the human, or for the Christian notion of personhood. Um, so reading the book of Job, book of Genesis, and the Gospels of Matthew and the Gospel of Luke really sort of made me immerse myself into this um, Christian and religious thinking, and it made me appreciate a lot of and understand a lot of the references and a lot of the topics that he writes about. And I really, really recommend doing that. And even if you do, or if you don't, get a copy of it that has notes. The Everyman's Library has brilliant notes. So even if you don't read the Bible, you will have some notes that will help you understand whenever the biblical references are there. And even if you do read the Bible, Dostoevsky also puts in a lot of references to contemporary Russia that you are most likely not going to be able to acquaint yourself with. So still the notes are quite helpful. Regardless, there are pages upon pages of notes in here. And it's all very useful. Yeah, just I'll maybe go into slight spoiler territory here. So if you don't want to hear that for the last 2 or 3 minutes, then you can stop now. But some of the best parts of this novel to me, there was really no weak part. But the best parts were, really making the small hairs on the back of my neck stand up. And most notably, the Grand Inquisitor and the chapter that leads up to the Grand Inquisitor, where Ivan argues his point, his rejection of Christianity to Alyosha, and the Grand Inquisitor story of the second coming of Christ and the Spanish Inquisition, and all of that will play out, is incredibly powerful and very courageous on Dostoevsky's part. And he was concerned actually that it would be taken as too strong an argument for atheism. And he, of course, was not an atheist, quite the contrary. But that's some of the strength of Dostoevsky, is that he can write and argue a point that he does not believe in with so much conviction that you're going to going down that path and believing in what he writes and does not believe himself, only for him to then come and then give you the complete opposite view. And he's writing that equally well. And so you gravitate towards that viewpoint, and you constantly bounce back and forth, and you find a lot of truth in everything that he writes. And you, at least I, will just be overwhelmed with thoughts and reflections upon what it all might mean. Then, as Dmitri is arrested for the murder of his father, that whole plot progress where he goes on to where he seeks out Grushenka, and it is incredibly well written. How he goes there, and the scenes with the Poles and her former fiance and all that is just brilliant. And then the chapters towards the end where Ivan visits Smerdyakov, and we learn, and again we're getting spoilers here, right? But where we learn that Smerdyakov murdered the father in his own view, with the accept of Ivan, and the guilt that Ivan faces because he perhaps also wished for his father's death, and perhaps he had some premonition or some understanding that that is what would happen, and he did not stop it. And so the 3 visits of Ivan to Smedyakov is incredibly well written, and Smedyakov is just a great character. And then the chapter where Ivan suffers brain fever and gets hallucinations and visits from the devil is incredibly witty. And as I noted in my story, I'm pretty sure that Bulgakov took some inspiration from the whole tone and atmosphere of that chapter when he wrote Master and the Margarita. And that is brilliant. And then you go into the trial of Dmitri, and there's 50 or 60 pages just with the prosecutor's speech and the defendant attorney's speech. And again, this is before you had DNA proof of a crime, so a lot was more about argumentation. But the whole trial is like, it's 1880 that he wrote this, but this is like better, procedure than you'll find in the best Hollywood movies about trials. And when you read the prosecutor's speech, even though you know at this point who actually was the murderer because Smedyakov confesses, but when you read the prosecutor's speech, you are clearly going to see that there is no doubt that Dmitri cannot be convicted because all the evidence is there. And when you then read the defensive attorney's speech, you are sure that he will be acquitted because all of that makes sense. And Dostoevsky really puts that out to the reader to make him challenge what is true, what does truth means, and how it is influenced by our prejudice and our beliefs and our education and our biases and everything like that. And I think that's also how he argues for the Christian salvation and for the faith, because ultimately, what truth can we really ascertain as mere human beings? We can never know divine justice. We can never know divine truth, and therefore we should perhaps have faith. But all right, I said 10 minutes, and now it's 12 minutes. So I'll write a review of this once I consolidate my thoughts a bit more. But what an incredible read, and I highly recommend the Pavian Volokonsky translation. The 5 novels I've read of Dostoevsky has all been different translations. I liked Constance Garner's Crime and Punishment, and obviously I have only read Brothers K in this one, but I did read a lot of different excerpts of translations before I chose this one, and I think it's a great. I mean, I have nothing to compare it with, but it's great. It's going to be right up there with some of the best books I've ever read. So, I mean, how can it not be a good translation then? How can it be any better than this? I really don't know. Okay, that's it. It's 2 a.m. I should probably finish. Thank you.